Let's face it, imposter syndrome, anxiety, self-doubt, whatever word you use to describe it, it's the number one reason why you are not living the life that you want to live. It's why you're not getting that promotion. It's why you're not getting into that relationship. It's why you're not making the money that you want to be making. And while that might be really hard to hear, I have some great news for you. You can still turn it around. If you want to stop that voice inside your head from telling you that you can't do things, or that feeling of, I can't do it because I'm afraid of what other people might think of me, then this video is for you. Welcome back to Organized Chaos. My name is Regan, and I am so very, very happy that you are here. We are officially on part 2 of the 4-part confidence series that we are running this summer, and I am so excited for this particular episode. In this episode, we are going to talk about how you can not ignore, not push away, but live with the judgment that comes from other people, because that judgment is never going to stop. If you've come into this episode thinking that you are just going to be able to totally wipe everything off, no one is going to pass any judgment on you from here on out, that is simply not true. Judgment continually comes from all around us. Instead, it is our jobs as humans to start to live with that judgment, to start to rely on the confidence within ourselves and recognize that that's their problem, that our concern is instead with taking care of ourselves and making sure that we can get absolutely everything that we want out of life. Last week, I dove into the basics of confidence, my 6 different tips that I have to give you after multiple breakdowns throughout my life, living with deep anxiety, panic attacks, depression, you name it. If you want to go and check that out, it's really a great starter kit to this overall series. Make sure you go ahead and do that, and then come back over to this video where we are going to talk about how you can face the judgment that other people put on you. And as always, if you don't already subscribe, we have 2 more episodes in this series. This is part 2 of 4. Make sure you go ahead and do that. You do not want to miss the following 2, where we touch on things like imposter syndrome and how you can have a conversation with absolutely anyone. All right, to get into it, I want to talk to all of the women in this space who are obsessed with what people think of them, who are obsessed with following this arbitrary definition, this made-up definition of success, and are willing to give up every single part of themselves in order to reach this arbitrary definition of success, and ignore all of the warning signs within their head and their body that this isn't a direction they should be moving in. The ones that are willing to give up absolutely every part of themselves because that voice in their head, that voice that tells them they are not enough, is just way too loud. I want you to be so careful that you don't let your anxiety get the best of you. But I get it. It is so easy. It's so easy to just drop into the depths of anxiety. Just let it take you and not think about where you're actually going because you're so concerned with what everyone else thinks that you're pushing yourself to the very back of the line. It's time for you to take a stand at the front to get to do the things that you want to do, but it's hard. I hear you. So let's take a deep breath, because in true Regan fashion, none of this is really going to be easy. This is going to dig deep into our courage, deep into our vulnerability, and force us to look inside of ourselves. But I promise you, once you do it, you're finally going to get to start to live so much more authentically. And what I found on my journey of mental health is that in order to adopt this mindset of confidence, in order to adopt this mindset and sense of self-worth, the self-worth that tells you that you are allowed to be here no matter how you show up, the confidence that tells you you can raise your hand in a meeting and say to someone, I'm not really sure that's right. You can totally go out on a limb and head down a different career path. You can move countries if you want to, even if everyone is telling you, is that really what you want to do? The confidence to stop apologizing for shit when you've done nothing wrong. I call this the fuck it mindset, and this has literally saved my life. I am actually not exaggerating there. It has allowed me to become the person I want to be. I would not be here sitting in front of you. You would not be listening to this episode if I didn't adopt the fuck it mentality. And to make sure that you can stop giving a damn about what other people think, I have put together the 5 pillars of fuck it that I wanted to bequeath upon on you today. Okay, so we're gonna dive right into it because I'm so excited to talk about it. Step number 1 is check yourself before you wreck yourself. To truly stop caring what other people think, we have to do the inner work first. And I know you're like, Regan, you start every video like this. I know, but without really understanding yourself, without really understanding your experiences and where you've come from, those other steps, any of the other steps to get towards confidence is going to be so hard for you because that voice inside your head, that inner critic, is just going to be so loud that you're not going to be able to hush it. You're not going to be able to tell it shut up because all of your life you've been fueling it. So we need to start looking deep into what is actually causing this loud voice in my head to be dictating the way my life is led. And to succeed at this, to be the person that we want to be, we have to call really deep on our courage. Brené Brown says this line over and over again, and so I've adopted it from her because I love it. It really is a call. It really is pulling in deep and seeing just how vulnerable we can be, because confidence takes vulnerability. But you know what's on the other side of vulnerability? Authenticity. The real you. The one that you probably don't show anyone because you are just too nervous and too anxious to really let that fly. But you are allowed to put yourself first. You are allowed to dictate how your life is going to go. Nobody else can take that from you. But to do that, you have to live authentically. And to be authentic, you have to know that every step that you take is not always going to be the right one, that people are always going to have judgments on it. But you are going to be courageous and continue to push through those different judgments. One of my all-time favorite Brené Brown videos is one that she did on vulnerability. I will link it in the description for anyone else that wants to watch. But what really spoke to me was this idea of connection. So don't be too hard on yourself. You know why you care so much about what other people think? Connection. You want to connect to somebody else. As humans, we want to connect. We want to build a group. We want to be surrounded by love, by safety. And that is not something to shy away from. But true connection, the one that fuels you, is one that is rooted in vulnerability. If you think about the friends that you have in your life, who really fuels you? The friends that you can go and be open and honest with, right? Not the friends where you have to pretend, not the friends where you have to put on a mask or a face. The friends that allow you to say, I'm not sure about this answer. Brainstorm with me, problem solve with me. Hey, help me through this. The friends that you can lean on and you can rely on, because that's vulnerability. Saying, I don't know how to do this right now, that's vulnerability. But that is authenticity as well. But everyone makes it sound so easy. They make it sound so easy that you can just push back against the societal norms of doing what everyone else does without even blinking an eye. And let me tell you, it's hard. Vulnerability is scary because our brains are telling us that we are putting our lives in someone else's hands. We are putting the judgment and the opportunity to judge in somebody else's hands. Spoiler alert, you're not. You have so much more control than you think. The only reason that someone can control you is because you're letting them. The only reason that you are not dyeing your hair pink because you're afraid of what other people might think is because you're letting them. You're letting them dictate your life and your decisions. It's not them walking around with pink hair, it's you walking around with pink hair. Checking ourselves before we wreck ourselves is recognizing that we have so much more control over our lives than we think. That doing things regardless of the answer, regardless of what happens, is up to us. That courage is doing things even if we know the answer could be a no. Because we have the responsibility to ask the question, to go and do the thing, to try and be the most authentic person that we can be. And then the other person has the responsibility to respond the way that they're going to respond. But that doesn't need to change our action. We know that on average, we spend about 4,000 weeks here on this earth. Why would you ever want to do anything except for the things that make you happy? So pillar number 2 of the fuck it mentality, moving on from check yourself before you wreck yourself, now that you've done the inner work, is everything is fake and nothing is real. So I hear you. It's so hard. Being vulnerable and authentic is so hard, especially when your insides are just screaming that you can't do this, when you've been trained your entire life that your worth is dependent upon whether or not someone else accepts you. But this is a little mantra that I keep in my head, something that I say to myself over and over again when I'm feeling that call to be afraid of what other people think of me. And it's this: everything is fake and nothing is real. Everything's been made up, careers, money, expectations. When you think about the fact that there are more men named Tick on publicly traded boards than underrepresented groups, you realize that the rules are made up, which is actually great news for you in a really messed up way. If everything is made up, why are you spending the time, the effort, the energy on trying to follow someone else's rules, on putting yourself in the box that was made by somebody else? So why not test those boundaries, even just the slightest bit? Why not start to push them? See what happens. If you get a no, great. Turn back around and try and figure out why that no existed. No one's gonna just say no for no apparent reason. There's always going to be a reason behind it. Everything is fake and nothing is real. People have made decisions, but those decisions are fluid. There is an opportunity here for everybody to get what they want. Because if other people are earning the money that you want to earn, taking the vacations that you want to take, being in the relationships, owning the homes, doing the things that you want to do, what's stopping you? Why can't you do that same exact thing? You conforming to this made-up reality is only serving to dim your light, my love, and you absolutely do not need to do that anymore. Pillar number 3 is even when you don't choose, you are still making a choice. Pillar number 3 of the fuck it mentality is a contentious one. It's kind of like if a tree falls in a forest, does it actually make a noise? Though I think it's much clearer than that. It's the idea that every moment you have a choice. So if you're saying, I can't go and start my own business, well, you're making a choice to not go and start your own business. Not someone else is not making that choice for you. You are making that choice for yourself. You always have a choice, whether it's in your career, in your relationships, in your life. You have the opportunity to control what happens to you. If you're faced with a hard decision at work and you feel like there is only one option, look at that option upside down. Is there only one option because you're afraid of hurting someone? Because you're afraid of making the wrong choice? Are you taking the easiest option to just make it easy on yourself? What's the option that's actually going to bring you the most happiness? That's the question I want you to ask. Inaction in itself is still a choice. It's just a choice that you might feel more comfortable with. And that is the hard truth. So let me bring up a story that happened to me if it's helpful. Every single time, and I talked about this concept in my Is It Time to Quit Your Job episode, I wanted to quit a job. I would find myself following the same pattern where I would just start complaining. I'd complain, and it would get to the point where my partner and I would start to argue about it. We wouldn't argue about the fact that I needed to go and find a new job. We would argue about the fact that I was complaining so much about the current job that I was in. And it took me really pushing myself to this place of extreme anxiety to realize, why am I doing this? This is not the only job that exists. This is not the only place that exists. This is not the only role that exists. I have options here. I was able to find the job I'm currently in, so it means I will be able to go and find something else somewhere else. I see people all over the world doing the things they want to do, living the lives they want to live. Why can't I go and do that myself? But I continued to choose to stay in that job because I felt like I would not be able to go and find another if I took a step out on that ledge. And let me tell you that jumping can be so scary. That vulnerability can be so scary because I was afraid of what other people thought, because I was afraid that if I didn't do it right, it was going to fail, and then that would inherently mean I failed. In reality, it means you have the courage, you have the self-confidence, you have the self-worth to go and try. And trying is all we can ask of each other. You have a responsibility to try in your life, to try to build the life that you want to live. You don't have the responsibility to succeed in it, but you have the responsibility to try. This is all about reclaiming your agency, an agency that has been taken away from us, an agency that we have been told over and over and over again is not possible, because it's easier to put people in boxes, because it's easier to keep people there, when in reality, you have a choice, you have a chance, you have the option to go and do the things that you want to do. Okay, fuck it, pillar number 4 is another contentious one, and it is find a better thing to worry about. If you are worried all the time about what other people think about you, go and find a better thing to worry about. We are anxious. It's nature for us. It is going to be our reality. We're always going to be anxious about something. Go and find a better something to be anxious about. And when I started to think about life in these terms, this idea of go and find something better to be anxious about, I stopped ruminating. A lot of times when I don't have something to be anxious about, when everything in my life is just smooth sailing for the moment, which is quite rare, I will start to fixate on something that I really probably don't have control over or isn't really worth my time. Those are the moments where I find that self-doubt really, really digging down into my core. And what I try to do instead is go, all right, well, what's important to me right now? What goals am I working towards? Am I not working towards the goal? Okay, let's change that situation, because we want to give ourselves something to worry about that's better and more important and more aligned with our why than what everyone else thinks about us. Let's take a look at a similar concept called the backwards law, which was coined by Alan Watts and then actually reworked in Mark Manson's book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, which I watched prior to this episode. I watched a video of him doing a full-on review of his own book, which was absolutely hilarious. I will link it in the description for you. But I loved this concept because it says the pursuit of a positive experience is a negative experience, and the acceptance of a negative experience is a positive one. So if you are so obsessed with trying to do absolutely everything right, never ever making a mistake because you're afraid of what other people think of you, your life is going to be significantly less exciting, but also more painful. Whereas if you can accept the fact that not everyone is going to love what you do, if you can accept the fact that not everyone is going to be accepting of what you decide, your life inherently is going to be much more positive. So I want you to work with that. I want you to think about that, to take that away from this episode. You do not need to be worrying or overthinking or spending time hyperfixating on what someone else is going to think of your decision, because this is going to lead me to pillar number 5 of the fuck it mentality, which is your mom is anxious too. Everybody and their brother these days is anxious. We know this. We know that upwards of 40% of the population deal with anxiety at some point in their life. That is a significant number. But when we think about it in those terms, we recognize that the anxiety that is put on us by others is their responsibility. Our responsibility is to figure out what is going to make us the happiest in our own lives. Someone else putting judgment on us is really a representation of what's going on in their inner world. Nobody is thinking about you as much as you're thinking about what they think of you. And with this realization, it can create this empathy and this understanding that everyone else is just walking around worried what everyone else thinks of them. So you can actually take yourself out of that equation. No one is forcing you to be there. You are allowed to remove yourself from it and give yourself the freedom to go and make choices for you. People's opinions are often a reflection of their own insecurities. When someone sits there, if they don't like something about themselves, if they're worried about something in particular, that is why they're going to project that opinion onto you, because it feels safer for them. And when you understand that they're just trying to find safety themselves, you can take everything they say with a grain of salt. You can let someone else's opinion be theirs and let your own opinion be yours. You can be informed by someone else's opinion. There's no harsh judgment there. But what you should not do, what you cannot do, is let someone else's opinion dictate the steps that you take in your own life. Because, like I said, even your mom is anxious. Okay, so as always, we're going to finish with a little bit of homework for this episode, because if you are trying to let go of the judgment from everyone else, if you're trying to really build your internal validation and your internal sense of confidence, I want you to go and sit and think about a couple different concepts. Number one, I want you to think about this idea that everything is fake and nothing is real. I want you to sit and make a list of what would your dream life look like. If you closed your eyes and you created a blue sky scenario in your head, what would that look like? I want you to get super detailed. Go deep into the details. You can go and watch my video on goal setting, which I posted earlier on this year. That'll help you to really try and envision and embody the life that you're going to live. Set the habits, audit your life, do all that fun stuff. I will link it in the description, but you are going to sit and you're going to dive into what does that life look like? Then you're going to audit and see what is stopping me. What beliefs are stopping me? Is it that fear of judgment? Is it the fear of something else? Is it the limitation, this idea that that's not for me? Well, how do we make it for you? Let's start asking the question, why? Why isn't this for you? Why isn't that? Why can't you do that? Keep digging deeper and deeper until you get to the center of the answer. Because the goal here is to really provide ourselves with that inner level of confidence to build the rest of our lives on. Remember, no one is thinking about you as much as you're thinking about them. I promise you, everyone else is anxious. Everyone else is just trying to figure out how to get by, how to cope with the world that we are living in. And you are allowed to make decisions for yourself. It is not selfish to make decisions for you. And what you need to remember is no one else is living the life that you're living. You're the only one in your body. You're the only one in your soul. You're the only one living out these 4,000 weeks on this earth. Why would you ever want to do anything except for the things that make you happy? I'm Regan, and this has been another episode of Organized Chaos. I'm so very happy that you're here. If you have not already subscribed, please go ahead and do so. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok. I'm building my communities on both of those different channels if you want to see me day to day talk about all the fun and fuck it parts of anxiety. Otherwise, I will see you all next time. Thanks so much, everyone.